Hey folks, I'm Allison. Welcome to my booktube channel. Today I'm going to be talking you through my TBR for November and December. I have a lot going on the winter of this year, some work stuff and a lot of travel, so I'm not being overly ambitious. There are only 5 books that I'm aiming to get through the next 2 months, and none of them are that long. The longest one, I think, is this one, which is Katabasis by R.F. Kuang. And it is about 540 pages, but everything else is like pretty little and short. So hopefully I will be successful getting through everything. I guess jumping into Katabasis. This is a book that I don't know how I'm going to feel about. It seems to be getting very mixed reviews online, and I am not the biggest R.F. Kuang fan in the world. I have read the first book in the Poppy War series, and I have read Babel. And both of them I was sort of tepid on. The Poppy War series was just too violent and gruesome for me, and Babel was really, really interesting in terms of the world building and the metaphor to colonialism and the way that she created the magic system with the magic happening in the gaps or ambiguities between the way that words are translated from one language to another. All of that was amazing. But I didn't really think the book was very well plotted. The way that it ends is sort of a big fell swoop kind of ending, and it was something that I, maybe halfway through the book, thought to myself, that's weird. Wouldn't it be a shame if XYZ happened and then everything would just fall apart? And then that literally is exactly what happened. And so I found that book kind of disappointing. But this one I am nevertheless sort of optimistic about, because it seems like it may have more of the qualities that I really like in her work and fewer of the aspects that have really bothered me in her other books. I think this one is supposed to be pretty light and sort of comedic almost, and academic and philosophical. And so I'm hoping, even though it is a descent into hell book, I'm hoping it won't have the kinds of like really graphic war, scenes of like the horrors of war that the Poppy War series had. And because I think this is one that's supposed to be more about the experience and just enjoying your time in the world than it is about really setting up this huge plot arc of like, how are we going to bring down, this society built on colonization. It's more like these students are going into hell and having some experiences in hell. I think it's not going to matter to me that much how well the plot arc really works and, whether there's a surprise twist ending kind of thing. It's more just going to be the fun world building and the philosophizing. And yeah, so I'm excited about this one. I guess I should tell you a little bit about the like basic plot, although I feel like this book is everywhere, so you probably already know this. But it's about these 2 college students at Cambridge whose professor dies, and they really need recommendation letters from this professor, and so they follow him down into hell in a sort of, Dante's Inferno, different levels of hell kind of way to try to get to him and get this recommendation. So obviously it has a little bit of, it's like got a lightness to it in terms of the premise that I think her other books have been lacking, and it's supposed to be really funny. So I'm excited about this book, but yeah, but we will see. I think it's a little bit of a risky one. The next book on my list following the dark academia theme is Catalina. This is a literary fiction novel about a young Latina woman who is admitted to Harvard, and her experiences, dealing with the class stratification at this like very fancy elite school where there are all these like incredibly rich kids, and also trying to balance the the experience she has in this sort of bubble environment with the experience of the life that she, you know, knows she's going back to when she graduates, and her, you know, family's sort of less than ideal circumstances, and, you know, what is inevitably going to be a difficult sort of job market, and like, you know, a difficult journey to try to create a nice life for herself, given that she's starting from a place where she's like lacking a lot of privileges and advantages. I'm really excited about this book because I just think the aesthetic is so cool. The last bit of the summary on the back says, part campus novel, part pop song. Catalina is unlike any coming of age novel you've ever read. And I just think that sounds really fun. I just love this like 90s bedazzled aesthetic. My hope, at least for this book, is that it's going to be one that makes you laugh at things, because if you don't laugh, you'll cry. You know, that really takes on a lot of the struggles that people are facing in life, but in a way that is, you know, really like faces them front on and just like finds the humor and finds the joy. And so I'm really, really excited about this one as well. I'm a little disappointed, I have to say. The hardback cover of this book is very beautiful in a sort of like holiday festivities kind of way, and I feel like the cover of the paperback version doesn't have the same sort of spooky winter dark academia vibe. So yeah, so anyways, imagine that this cover is like going along with the covers of all these other sort of like holiday dark academia books that I'm gonna be reading, you know, and just ignore the bright pink cover. Okay, so the next book is The Cautious Traveler's Guide to the Wasteland by Sarah Brooks. This is a fantasy mystery novel, I think. It is about a luxury train service that goes through the Wastelands, which is this like awe-inspiring, terrifying, magical place. And something goes wrong on one of the journeys, and the main character, who I like grew up on the train or something, or has ridden it a bunch of times and is really familiar with it, has to try to solve the mystery of what has gone wrong. So I think this is going to be a little bit sort of Agatha Christie, but also a little bit maybe Naomi Novik kind of vibes, like the overlap of kind of, you know, Agatha Christie and Naomi Novik. And maybe that's too high of hopes to have for it, but that's the vibe that I'm getting. So I'm really excited about this one as well. And look at this beautiful cover. It has this like train illustration, this like old-timey train engine illustration on it in gold. It's just absolutely so stunning, and so like, you know, holiday spirit, cozy, dark, spooky, you know, wind howling outside your door vibes. The next book that I'm reading is Fair Play by Louise Hegerty. This is one I picked up in a little free library, actually. It is about a guy who throws a New Year's Eve jazz age, you know, theme party, and with a bunch of friends in an Airbnb. And the next morning, everyone wakes up and he's dead. And his sister has to, in classic whodunit style, solve the mystery of what has happened to him. So because it's set in over New Year's Eve and has this sort of jazz age 20s theme, I think it's gonna fit in pretty well with the vibe of the other books that I have. I'm not a big reader of mysteries typically, because I think the plot can get sort of boring. You know, it's like somebody dies or somebody disappears. You have some potential suspects. There's a couple of like red herrings or, you know, misdirections, and then you solve it. So I think you really have to have the mystery be set in an environment where you're really enjoying spending time with the characters. Like mysteries, I think, really have to be books where you're not so much reading it to solve the mystery, you're reading it to just be around the cast of characters that's been created. So I'm hoping that this will also be a very like fun, vibey atmosphere and cast of characters. Last one. I told you this was a short list. The Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries by Heather Fawcett. I think this is going to be a really fun, wintry, kind of light fantasy read. It's about a Cambridge professor who studies fairy lore, and she goes out to this little sort of village in the woods and is investigating some mysterious happenings that, you know, turn out to be magical. Anyways, I think this is going to be just lovely. You know, this is maybe one that I'll save like for the first snow, if we get snow in December, because I think it's just going to be, I think there's a romance and it's just going to be a romp. So yeah, so hopefully in contrast to some of the darker, spookier, more sort of philosophical and moody books that I have on the list, this will be a fun little, you know, dessert, light dessert. Okay, so there you have it. These are the 5 books that I am hoping to read in the months of November and December. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to hear more from me, please consider subscribing. And thank you so much for spending some of your one wild and precious life with me watching this video.